Today's episode idea was suggested to us by Chris. If you would like to suggest episode topics for us to talk about, please tell us in their Discord or leave a comment down below. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Planeswalkers Pub. I'm your host, Aaron.
I'm Eric.
Howdy, it's RJ. Today we are going to be talking about the first ever block party, going back to 2003 and Mirrodin Block.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about that. But before that, let's talk about our friends over at tcgplayer.com. In the description box below will be our affiliate link, which will take you over to tcgplayer.com. You're going to be buying cards anyway, so why not help out the channel at the same time? I also want to mention the fact that we have a Discord server as well as a Twitter, links of which will both be in the description box below.
Now that that's done, let's talk about our signature card.
Yes, every episode of the Planeswalkers Pub will feature a signature card that may or may not relate to the episode's topic.
Today's signature card is Mere Mindservant. Mere Mindservant costs 1 colorless mana. It is an artifact creature, Mere. Pay 2 mana, tap it, shuffle your library. It's a 1/1.
So this card is dope. For starters, if you're just listening to this, just glance at the screen right now. The art of this, it looks like a little Iron Man, which is just hilarious. Like, actually freaking hilarious. Which is part of the reason why I chose this as a signature card. I also chose it because of the ability. Shuffling your library is actually very good. Just a random shuffle. How often do we get like these weird land pockets, or worse, we'll get just like no lands at all, and we're like, man, if we get to shuffle our library or have a fetch or something to do this, it'll be really great. You have this little dude on the field, just, hey, shuffle your library.
Yeah, having access to the ability to shuffle your library whenever you want is definitely helpful, but not so much if you're tutoring. You don't want to do Worldly Tutor or something and then shuffle your library.
Which is, thankfully, it just says shuffle your library, not target player's library. Because at that point, then yes, that would be extremely broken. I would just be like, it's like, oh, I'm going to Worldly Tutor. Awesome. After you finish that, I'm going to have it shuffle your library.
Sometimes I just feel like shuffling, so I'll just do this like, hey, why not? And I'll just shuffle for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
While I wait for you to finish comboing off.
Or maybe, like, you Worldly Tutor. That someone's like, hey, I'm going to force you, to mill the top cards. You're like, all right, well, I'll shuffle real quick. This way you don't lose what you tutored for. Granted, you technically wasted a card, but
I'd rather have a card wasted and not go to the graveyard than having the chance to draw it again, though.
That's true. All right, so switching over to our main topic, which is talking about our block party. So our friend Chris came up to us and suggested that we pick a block in Magic. Blocks typically are 3 sets put into 1. They don't necessarily do blocks any longer. It's kind of something from like the old school way of doing things.
People still call them blocks, though. I mean, I refer to past sets as like the Ixalan block or the Return to Ravnica 3 block.
Magic has been around for over 20 years, and there are people that have never heard of these sets or just forgot about them. So we're going to use this block party series as a way to reintroduce them to the community.
We're going to talk about the keywords that were introduced in the block, as well as the cards that we Commander players use often that were created in the block. If there are any cycles that were created in the set, we'll talk about those as well.
Mirrodin Block itself consists of the sets Mirrodin, Darksteel, and then Fifth Dawn. The thing is about this block itself is that it was very focused around artifacts. Let's talk about the keywords introduced in this block. One of the best keywords on an artifact, at least for all of us Voltron players, equipments. Equipments basically are artifacts that you can physically pay a certain amount to put them onto a creature and then get an additional effect. Let's put up on screen Colossus Hammer, which is a 1 mana artifact equipment. Comes down, it's on the field, then you have to pay 8. Is it really 8?
It's 8.
Then you're actually paying 8 in order to actually equip it onto a creature. But then that creature gets +10/+10 and can basically punch through whatever it feels like.
It also loses flying.
Well, yeah, but you don't care about that. You're getting +10/+10. Let's get real. Another keyword inside this actual set was Entwine. Entwine is a newer mechanic that made casting things a little bit more interesting. So Entwine actually, let's put up tooth and nail. It gives you the ability to either pay a certain cost and get one or the other effect. If you pay the additional Entwine cost, you get both of the effects kind of simultaneously.
Imprint is an interesting mechanic where you exile a card onto the card and then you do whatever the effect says. For example, Isochron Scepter is You exile an instant with 2 CMC or less, you pay 2 and you tap Isochron Scepter and you get to cast that spell. For Chromox, whatever card you exile with it, you get to tap it for that color. And then we have Indestructible, which means it can't be destroyed by either damage or effects that say destroy.
Which is something very, very new to Magic as a whole, which is actually pretty interesting. They did have, I'm pretty sure there was a card that says, like, you know, either gives indestructible or, like, when this creature dies, it doesn't actually reduce the damage to 0. They had a bunch of stuff that didn't.
Stuff that says prevent damage or this creature cannot be destroyed.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, probably.
They had stuff like that before, but they didn't actually give it a full-fledged name until this set, which they chose a appropriate indestructible.
Another surprising mechanic to be introduced in this set is scrying. Scrying is where you look at the top card of your library, depending on the number behind scry, so scry 1, 2, or 3, and you can decide whether or not to put that card on the, leave it on top, or put it on the bottom of your library.
Some of the newer players out there might actually recognize this as a similar mechanic to Surveil, which actually you look at the top card of your library, at that point you can keep it on top or put it into your graveyard. Personally, in my opinion, I think scrying is a lot better, unless you're running like a dredge or a graveyard strategy, just because it puts it at the bottom so you still have access to it eventually if you want to go grab it later.
Modular is a keyword on artifact creatures that says modular and then a number. This comes into play with that many +1/+1 counters on it. When it's put into a graveyard, you may put its +1/+1 counters on target artifact creature.
So you have something like Arcbound Ravager, for instance, which is a perfect example of this. He comes in, it's a 2-mana artifact creature, comes in with modular 1, so it comes in with 1/+1/+1 counter on it, and then when it dies, you can move that 1/+1/+1 counter onto something else. It's really, really cool, especially in this particular block, just because you had a bunch of modular creatures floating around, and if you made one of them indestructible or something in that sense, you can actually board wipe, and then just all of that work that you've ever had just goes onto that one creature. Affinity. It's a namesake that most actual decks ran inside of the standard environment. It's what Affinity basically states the fact of for each artifact, it counts as one less. Which is very, very good. Some creatures would have affinity for artifacts. So let's say if it's like, you know, Frogmite, it's a perfect example. It's typically a 3-drop, I believe, which has affinity for artifacts. So it means if you have 3 artifacts on the field, it comes out for free. It basically becomes 0, which is just great. There's like Thoughtcaster, which has affinity for artifacts, which costs a lot, but if you've got 4 artifacts on the field, it's 1 blue, you draw 2 cards. Like, affinity changed the game. And it made a lot of artifacts just super cheap or even free. And a lot of decks, even some in Modern still, are running the Affinity combo. The last keyword that was actually introduced into this set was Sunburst. It's a weird mechanic because with Sunburst, it states the creature comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it. So there's always going to be a maximum of 5. Because you'll spend, let's say, a green and a blue to cast this 2-drop, it comes in with 2 counters. You spend a green, a blue, and a white to cast something else, it comes in with 3 counters. And Sunburst is a really, really cool mechanic, especially if you combined it with Sunburst and then Modular, because those are +1/+1 counters at the very least. So moving stuff around is always great.
It's kind of like the opposite of Adamant, isn't it? Adamant is you spend the
same
colors.
color for it, and then you get a cool effect. With this, if you want to spend multiple colors, no, it's basically the exact kind of opposite of it. One thing that's really interesting is it forced people to be in 5 or multiple color decks in order to make these things work, because you can't really put a card with Sunburst in a monocolor deck. It won't work out that well.
Well, with the heavy artifact focus of this set, a lot of the cards you were playing were colorless, so you probably could get away with playing 5 colors.
Yeah, very, very easily. The next thing we're actually going to be talking about are the different cycles in this block. One of the main things to know about cycles is that they're typically 1 card of each color or multiple different cards of like the same color and stuff in that sense. First cycle we're going to be mentioning are the artifact lands. This is the first time in Magic that they've actually put a type onto a land and gave it the word artifact, which means that it counts as an artifact as well as a land. Upside, if you're running affinity, that just means it's one more thing that makes your stuff cheaper. Downside, if someone plays a Vandal Blast, that means they're blowing up your lands too.
It's also the last time they ever did it, because the artifact lands were emergency banned in Standard because of how overpowered they were.
Yeah, they're really cool though. I really dig it. Like, because those didn't come in tapped or anything crazy. Like, you know, Magic was a lot more powerful back then, because something like this, like that gives an artifact land that gives it such a potence thing, would be like a tap land now, versus back then it's just like, okay, cool, you just drop like a normal land, don't worry about it. It makes all this stuff cheaper. Don't worry about it. Like, you're talking about this land that's in an affinity deck, it technically taps us for 2, because it taps for its own individual color, and then it makes it 1 cheaper. So great. Another thing, in which case cycle wise, was the Cauldron cycle. So inside of the Mirrodin block, they created the Sword of Cauldron, which is 4 mana artifacts equipment. Equipped creature gets +5/+5, and when equipped creature deals damage to a creature, remove that creature from the game. It's also equip cost of 4. So it's a kind of a nice, like, have to exile on your dude type deal, provided that your dude survives. But I mean, +5/+5, that's, you're killing most things with that. It makes blocking a lot more complicated, makes attacking into a lot more freaking complicated. It's a really, really great card. They then continued this inside of the next set by creating the Shield of Kaldra, which is 4 mana artifacts. Equip cost is a 4. And it says that equipment name Sword of Kaldra, Shield of Kaldra, and Helm of Kaldra are indestructible. And the equipped creature itself is also indestructible. This is kind of cool because some of the sets, people didn't know about newer cards are coming out, but when they saw this, they knew, okay, well, the next card that's going to be finishing the cycle is going to be the Helm, which the Helm itself is 3 mana artifact equipment. Equip cost is for 2. Equipped creature has First Strike, Trample, and Haste. And it also has an activated ability. You can pay 1, and then if you control all 3 of the pieces, the Helm, the Sword, and then the Shield, you then put a 4/4 colorless avatar legendary creature token named Kaldra into play and attach those equipments to it. It's one of those cycles that even today is just very freaking powerful, because without actually creating a 4/4, if you just have all these pieces and you put them on one creature, you're talking about now a +5/+5 indestructible First Strike, Trample, Haste. That's not something I want to get in the way of.
No, that's definitely a powerful Voltron-y thingy.
Yeah, not to mention the fact of if you give it like, something like Fire Streaker, which you're now giving it double strike. Yeah, that's a GG good that's GG good buddy.
Fire Shrieker, also introduced in this set.
Next, we have the Beacons of. They are a series of instants and sorceries in all 5 colors. All the beacons shuffle themselves back into the library, and they all do pretty much what the color wants to do. The red one deals 5 damage to target creature player. The white one doubles target player's life total. The black one put target artifact or creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. The blue one is you take an extra turn. That's clearly the best one. And then we have Beacon of Creation, which is put a 1/1 green insect creature token into play for each forest you control. It's good for a Crater of Push, at least. Fills up those bodies on the board. Clearly the best one is the blue one, followed by the black one, and I'd say the other 3 are kind of trash.
Our first creature cycle are the Sliths. There was one in each color, including colorless. There was an artifact one, and each of them essentially had something that was found on many creatures of that color. So the white one has flying.
The white one has flying?
The white one has flying.
That's a blue keyword, my dude.
Leave me alone, Eric. The white one has flying. Arcbound Slith has...
So Planeswalkers Pub is produced inside our live audience.
Arcbound Slith has Modular 1. Slith Bloodletter has Regenerate for 1 and a black. Slith Firewalker has Haste. Slith Strider has whenever it's blocked, you draw a card. And Slith Predator has Trample. I also didn't tell you what Slith actually does. A Slith says whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
One of the other cycles was the Tower Ofs. All the Tower Ofs are 4 mana artifacts that you have to pay 8, tap it, and it does something cool. The Champions actually gives a creature +6/+6. Calamity deals 12 damage to target creature. The Fortunes draws you 4 cards. And the Murmurs basically mills someone for 8 cards, which is very, very cool.
I'm not thrilled by the Tower Ofs. They seem kind of expensive for their effects.
Well, yeah, but we're always like late gamers. Sometimes you'll have just mana sitting around, and I don't know, drawing or gaining 10 life every turn seems pretty decent.
8 mana lying around?
Yeah.
No. Why would if you have 8 mana
No.
lying around, you're losing the game.
Yeah.
Well, my point is the fact of like if there's a standoff, something in that sense, or even if it's not a standoff, you just have it floating, or just there.
That's my squirt bottle.
How many games have you played in EDH, RJ, where you've had just 8 mana just sitting around? You're like, man, I wish I had Towers of to
Or-
funnel this into.
Or how about this? You're holding open the mana for a counterspell or something like maybe a Psych Rift or whatever. If someone goes nuclear crazy, but they don't do it, so you're like, all right, well, let's just use the mana to gain 10 freaking life.
I might build a deck around these. One where you don't do anything on your turn, but on your end step or your opponent's turn, so where I'm always holding up mana.
Yeah.
And then just do that on my end step. Just something weird, yeah.
Or even something like putting the Tower of Fortunes inside of the Locust God deck or Niv Mizzet deck. Paying 8 mana to draw 4 cards every freaking turn sounds pretty freaking good in those decks.
Our final creature cycle are the Bringers. There's one for each color. Each of them costs 7 and 2 of their respective colors. Or you can pay a Wooburg, white, blue, black, red, green, rather than paying their mana cost. Each of them have trample and are 5/5 and have some kind of really powerful effect. It says for the black one, it's at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 life. If you do, search your library for a card, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it.
So you just tutor every turn.
You tutor every turn. Then there's Blue Dawn, which is at the beginning of your upkeep, you may draw 2 cards. Bringer of the Red Dawn, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may untap target creature and gain control of it until end of turn. That creature gains haste until end of turn.
It's an active treason, dude. That's sick.
Yeah. Green Dawn, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a 3/3 beast creature token into play. And White Dawn, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to play.
I now want to make a Bringer value deck.
Right, but that's the thing is you can only put them in Wooburg decks.
Because they're physically showing the actual colors themselves. So, I mean, at that point, you just run like a Joda as your commander and call it a day.
Or my favorite Wooburg commander, Progenitus.
Well, yeah, but at that point, how are you? Yeah, I guess. Progenitus, before Joda, I would give you Progenitus, but, like, then Joda came out and I'm just like, this is just better. Moving on to the next segment, we're going to go to the Born in this Block section. These are the cards that Commander players use all the time that were actually created originally in this block. Number 1, for the most part, is Solemn Simulacrum, otherwise known as Sad Robot. The thing about Solemn is the fact of, which everyone pretty much should know, it's 4 mana artifact creature. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then when Solemn Simulacrum dies, you draw a card. Speaking of drawing cards, another thing that was introduced inside these actual block was
Skull Clamp. Magic's best misprint.
1 mana artifacts, you clamp something, and when it dies, you draw 2 cards. Another card that literally everyone in green uses, Eternal Witness, otherwise known as just E-Witness.
I don't own a copy of Eternal Witness.
Seriously?
Yeah,
How is that possible?
I don't know.
Weird. That's weird. Eternal Witness basically says, when it enters the battlefield, you may choose a target card from your graveyard, put that card back into your hand. E-Witness was born in this set, or in this block, which is something I didn't personally assume. Like, you're thinking artifact-based block, you don't assume E-Witness.
No, you do not. This is definitely off theme.
Extremely off theme. Speaking of off theme, let's go over to Tooth and Nail, which with the new Entwine mechanic, it does kind of make sense. Tooth and Nail will be born in this set, but you kind of thought that Tooth and Nail had lasted a lot longer. It was out a lot earlier than this, of how powerful Commander players actually utilize it.
2003 ain't exactly early, my dude.
Yeah, it's true, but even still, I don't know. I thought it'd be older than this or something. The last things that were actually introduced inside this set in this block was Staff of Domination, a very well-known combo generator. The most notable one that was actually created in this block was Vidalcan Orrery.
Josh Lee Kwai favorite.
Favorite of a lot of people, actually, and Justin as well, because he likes playing a lot of stuff at flash speed. 4 mana artifact, you may cast spells as though they had flash, which is basically just cast my instant speed, which is great. And since it was born from this set, I don't know how to feel about it.
Of the legends, there's really only one that's very well known, and that would be our friend
Memnarch. Memnarch costs 7 colorless mana. It's a legendary artifact creature, wizard. Memnarch's a wizard. Okay.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful wizard of
That's a
Memnarch.
wizard.
It's one of them there whiz kids.
It's a wizard. He's a wizard, Harry.
Go good in wizard tribal, I guess.
Yeah, right?
And Mr. Serial Girl Tribal.
He's a 4/5. You can pay 1 and 2 blue into him. Target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. Then you can pay 3 and a blue and gain control of target artifact.
That reminds me of the Olivia card that turns things into vampires and then steals vampires.
Yeah. No doubt the fact that they actually kind of either borrowed the idea from Memnarch. Most notably with Memnarch, the fact that it's a legend means you can run it as your commander, which is great. And a lot of the decks center around just straight up making a lot of mana and then just stealing all of your stuff, which is just great because it says target permanent, which includes lands.
That's always fun. And
That
he's
is
a
always
mono
fun.
blue commander, right?
Yes, because of the actual blue pips inside of the actual color identity, he is officially a mono blue. But even still, it's like you're running a bunch of draw spells, a bunch of counter spells, and just stuff to kind of create a decent amount of mana, and then just slowly start stealing your opponent's stuff, or even all at once, which is just great. Cutting your opponents off resources like lands or important things really just makes them question: do they want to actually play anything, because it could potentially always be stolen later on.
You don't tap him for any effect, do you?
Nope. So you can just constantly keep redoing it.
So if you have infinite mana, it's just take everything.
Yep. So moving on to our actual next segment, we decided to actually choose 3 cards from the actual block itself, just to basically talk about that we found they're really, really interesting. My first card is probably just the one that changed Magic as a whole and is a decent heart of the Affinity deck, KCI, or Krark Clan Ironworks. It is basically like the Astronaut's Altar, but for artifacts. What it basically states is that it's a 4-mana artifact itself, and then you can sacrifice an artifact and then creates 2 colorless mana. It's something that's really, really just great. Everyone knows, if you've run an Orzhov deck or that type of sack outlet style deck, that having free sack outlets is just amazing. Everyone knows how powerful Astronaut's Altar is, where you just sacrifice a creature, get some mana. This is just the same thing, but with artifacts, which means you can sacrifice your Soul Ring, sacrifice your Arcbound Ravager, and stuff like that sense. There's also plenty of infinite combos you can run where you can sacrifice artifacts versus just having to sacrifice creatures.
My number 3 is Mycosynth Lattice. You pay 6 mana for an artifact that turns everything on the field into artifacts that are colorless, and you can tap lands for any color. And cards out of play are colorless. This is definitely one of the more powerful cards to come out of the set, as turning everything into an artifact definitely makes Memnarch stealing everything a lot easier.
It also makes this way Affinity just becomes, I just play this for free.
Yeah, even more so than you were probably already doing.
Super, super great. Plus, it's one of those things that, especially with Karn, didn't exist at the time, that locked down the entire board, but at the very least, the newer Microsoft has stuck around long enough that with the new Karn, it just makes it super annoying to deal with, because at that point you can't actually use any of your lands or anything. And of course, throwing that down and then someone putting down like a Nev's disc, just threatening to erase existence, is amazing.
You can also play Vandal Blast and overload it. Your stuff won't be destroyed because Vandal Blast doesn't hit your own artifacts, but everyone else's will.
My number 3 card is Door to Nothingness. It costs 5 colorless mana and enters tapped. Kinda boring. It says pay 2 white, 2 blue, 2 black, 2 red, 2 green. Tap it. Sacrifice Door to Nothingness. Target Aaron loses the game.
Pretty
Target
sure
Aaron, huh?
I was about to say Target Aaron.
Target Aaron, yeah, that's what the card says.
is that
Target
an-
Aaron loses the game.
That's an errata? I didn't realize
man.
that. I've actually never lost Door to Nothingness, which is kind of funny. Jeff tried several times to kill me with it, but I managed to stifle it or do something to not actually lose to it.
I will make you lose to a Door to Nothingness, Aaron.
I have no doubt in my mind that you will do that. Hopefully I can use my next card, which is my number 2, Jinx Choker. So it's a 3-mana artifact that states, at the end of your turn, target opponent gains control of Jinx Choker and puts a charge counter on it. And then at that point your opponent has it, and it reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, Jinx Choker deals damage to you equal to the number of charge counters on it. There's also an activated ability that states, pay 3, put a charge counter on Jinx Choker, or remove a charge counter from it. So it's one of those things that it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. Most people have played, in their school career, something that's like Hot Potato. This is kind of like the Magic version of Hot Potato, where you're throwing it to someone else because you don't want the damage to hit you. There's no way of kind of getting around it. Someone gives it to you, you're going to burn, and then you'll give it to someone else. RJ and I actually remember a Plane Chase game, and most people actually know from Plane Chase. I'm not sure if you can actually put it up on screen or not, but there's a card in Plane Chase that states during each person's upkeep, that player burns for the number of charge counters on this thing and then put additional 1 on top of it. And no one ever wants to roll out of it because they're thinking in their head, oh, well, I already took the damage, so Eric, you can take a little bit more damage than me. Then Eric's like, well, I'm not going to roll away because I already took the damage, so RJ, take more damage than me. And it's one of those planes that no one ever rolls away with it until it's too late and everyone just dies.
Well, you forget that I always roll.
You did, though.
Rolly.
Because
I did. Leave me.
You did.
Did I?
No, you did. You waited until it was like 2 turns before it actually killed you, failed your rolls like several times, and everyone's just like, well, it's just going to kill him, so I don't care. Jinx Joker's the exact same thing.
Yeah, no, actually, I do remember that now.
I like the fact that something like this, where you can actually choose your opponent. So if 2 people are getting up, or even better, if it'll just like, I have it, I'll give it over to Eric, who then most likely give it back to me, then I'll give it over to RJ, who can then give it over to Eric because Eric's like winning or something in that sense. You can also put mana into it to make it worse for your opponents to deal with. Or you can take it away in case as a way of like, hey, maybe you can reset it a little bit or change how it works. A lot of times people will be hard to kind of either target or get through with damage. Let's say that creatures, they have decent amount of blocks or anything, and that's something like that. With Jinx Choker, you're literally just giving it to him saying, hey, you're going to burn for 12 because I just pumped all my mana into it. Deal with it.
That sounds like it would go well in a Zansha deck.
Yeah. We're just giving stuff away anyway. The only downside is the fact of the person that owns it is the one that puts the charge counters onto it or takes them off. So it's not like you can just say, I'm going to give it to you, in response, I'm going to flood it. Well, I guess technically you could do it in a response, but you can't really say like, okay, well, RJ currently has it, I'm just going to pay money into it to make him burn a lot harder. That doesn't really work out.
My number 2 goes along with my number 3. Darksteel Forge. 9 mana. All your artifacts are indestructible.
I'm sensing a combo here.
Maybe. And itself is an artifact, so it would also be indestructible. Not much to say here other than it's simple and effective and really, really good in any and all artifact-based decks.
Yeah.
Darksteel Pendant costs 2 mana. It is indestructible. It's Darksteel. You can pay 1 mana, tap it, look at the top card of your library, and you may put it on the bottom of your library.
Wait, what's that do? Wait, what?
You pay 1 mana, tap it, and scry.
Oh, that's right. I've seen that. Oh, that's dope. All right, that's hot. I'm not gonna lie, that's hot. That's pretty decent.
It's probably like 10 cents, too. It's common.
Yeah, it's 1 mana, just 1 mana scry. Scrying every single turn.
In any color, because
Yeah.
it's colorless.
Scrying every turn is dope.
And people can't get rid of it, so you can recover faster by trolling the top of your library.
Of course, it'll be the only thing left alive after I use my final card. The most important card from this set, in my opinion. KCI is really, really good. I love it to death. Jinx Joker is a nice, cool meme thing. But the most important card that was created in this set is World Slayer. It's a 5 mana artifact equipment. Its equip cost is 5. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy all permanents other than World Slayer. This literally nukes the universe. It takes out your lands, it takes out your artifacts, your enchantments, your planeswalkers. Doesn't matter. It'll just wipe out existence. And I personally love it to death. That's also the reason why I personally don't own one and don't plan on picking one ever, because I would just use it every single game because it's a really, really cool card.
Is it exiling or is it destroying?
It is destroying, so if you've got your stuff that's indestructible, whatever.
Yeah, put it on an indestructible creature.
Yeah, something in that sense.
Enchant a creature with Darksteel mutation, and then equip that creature with World Slayer.
There you go. Well, the mutation becomes a 0/1 bug, so it won't.
It's indestructible. It's Darksteel mutation.
Yeah, but it won't deal any damage. This is actually hit.
Doesn't it? It doesn't give any power toughness?
No, no.
Okay.
It's blowing up the universe. Why would it give power and toughness? You got to work on that.
It's World Slayer. Like, you should be dealing some damage with that.
No, the damage that you're dealing is erasing existence. That's the damage that you're dealing. Like, it's a Thanos snap. Let's get real. Mm-hmm. Just straight Thanos snap that only the freaking glove is left alive. I love this card very, 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 very much. I do really, really want it for my Voltron deck, but once again, I would just tutor that up the first tutor I have, use it immediately, just nonchalantly every single time, and just keep blowing up existence, and that just won't be fun for anyone. So
You wouldn't be winning either. You would
doesn't
just
matter.
have World Slayer.
doesn't matter. Just the thought of think about this. It's the one sword that no one can touch. Like,
I mean, they can very easily. Any artifact removal, any permanent removal can get rid of it.
yeah, that's true. But it's just, I don't know. I really dig
It's
it.
very counterable.
I very much dig it. What do you got for your number 1?
My number 1 is the workhorse of the Affinity deck, Arcbound Ravager. Costs 2 mana for 0/0 with Modular 1. Comes into play with a 1/1 counter on it. You can sacrifice an artifact and put a +1/+1 counter on him. So you play a bunch of artifacts with Modular, you eat them, you put those modular counters on Arcbound Ravager, and you gain even more +1/+1 counters for what you sacrificed, and he becomes a big old hungry dog thing that then eats your opponents.
Yeah, there is also, like, there's multiple different arts for Arcbound Ravager. My favorite one is actually the promo one, where it actually looks like just like a weird glowing dog. Which is, it's adorable little dog that just eats other freaking artifacts and gets really, really big. Only downside with Arcbound Ravager is that it doesn't have trample or anything crazy, but I mean, that's not that hard to add that onto it. Loxodon Warhammer was also created in this set, which gives you trample and lifelink. So it works out.
The best card in all of Mirrodin. The card that everyone I play with loves and hates simultaneously. Mass Hysteria. 1 red mana. All creatures have haste.
Yeah, love to hate.
It's in my goad deck, just so when I goad all your creatures, you have to attack with everything. And it's a beautiful, beautiful little card.
The thing is about that as well is, what most people think is, oh, well, why is that scary? Because it says all creatures, not just your own. So, like, if one person has, okay, all my stuff has haste, you kind of can expect that you can prepare for it a little bit, because you're like, all right, what's in their deck? I'll just worry about that. Now you're giving the mono green player, who has no way of getting haste normally, you're just giving all their stuff haste.
Concordant Crossroads.
Yeah, well, you're giving like the mono blue player, who has no way of actually getting haste naturally.
Now all their creatures can tap turn 1.
Yeah, all their creatures can tap for turn 1, everything happens. Plus, this drops, like, let's say if it's RJ's turn, he'll drop this turn 1.
Yes,
now
he will.
Now your Llanowar Elves taps for a mana, like turn 1.
That's pretty dope.
So you can go like something of Forest into Llanowar Elves into Soul Ring.
Yeah,
Into
which is a
Signet.
choice you have to make when
Signet.
you're playing mono green. It's like, I could play Soul Ring turn 1, or I could play Llanowar Elves turn 1.
The objective is play Llanowar Elves turn 1. This way he doesn't have summon second. But yeah, no, giving everything haste is just dinged because it's just scary.
Yeah.
All your commanders can just instantly, if we're going to swing in or whatever, if you're running against any dragons or something, there's like, oh, cool, I just dropped out this giant dragon or cheated him out. It now has haste. I'm going to punch him in the face now.
Oh, hey, this Arcbound Ravager just ate
20 different things.
20
as
artifacts
it
and is
came
now
in.
like a 50-50.
I'm going to punch
Swings
him
at
in the face.
you.
And the flavor text on Mass Hysteria is also solid gold. As soon as you see the whites of their eyes, you can spill the red of their blood.
World Slayers triggers the equipped creature has to attack to get the effect.
Deals damage. Deals counter damage.
With Mass Hysteria, that can
Yeah,
be
I can,
right
yeah,
away.
I can do it right away. It's like, cool, I cast my commander. Awesome. I'm going to play out World Slayer. Oh, it doesn't get countered? Sick. Equipped it. I'm going to swing. It doesn't have haste. Thanks to RJ, yes, it does.
I've lost many games to Mass Hysteria.
Because giving haste to everything is just freaking... It's not...
I'm the only one who runs it in the play group.
It's kind of not smart, but it's also kind of like a... No, it's just not smart.
It's dangerous.
It's just not smart.
I never claimed to be intelligent.
All right. All right, so now we're actually going to switch over to our favorite stuff, which is going to be Last Call.
Last call?
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
All right, so final thoughts and a question to the people listening is, what did we miss? We know that we missed about the whole blasting station and station combo. We haven't talked about that. How excited are you about Mirrodin Block itself? How excited were you? Did you actually play in it when Standard was actually going around and playing with the whole infinite bull crap that people were creating?
Disciple of the Vault says hi.
Let us know down in the comments. Also, too, let us know in the comments, as well as over our Discord server, of what block you'd like us to do next. We're going to try not to do any of the most recent ones. So Kaladesh is kind of out. The newer one, the Return to Ravnica Part 3 is kind of out. But let us know. This way we can kind of just take into consideration. I also recommend, since you're down there in the comments section anyway, to jump over to our affiliate link, which is tcgplayer.com. You're going to be buying cards anyway, so why not help the channel at the same time? I also want to mention the fact that we do, once again, have our Discord and our Twitter down in the actual comments. Jump over there. We're starting a really cool community. We're sorry that we missed last week. There was some editing issues, but we're going to just put up the full unedited clip of last week's episode in our Discord only. So if you want to hear that train wreck that is that episode, you're welcome to listen to it there. I also want to mention the fact that we are also on Spotify. So if you happen to want to download us or listen to us reluctantly as you're driving along the streets or anything like that.
We on Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.
Yes, as well as our lovely place here on YouTube. So make sure you have to hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe, do all the fun things like you would normally do. Thank you guys for actually listening to this, and we'll see you guys